All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the EV market,
Okay.
and more specifically,
Yeah.
um, whether or not GM can actually take the crown from, you know, the EV king,
Right.
Tesla.
Tesla.
Um, the source that we're going to be using for this is a recent article from Electrek
Okay.
called GM EV Sales, Top 300,000 in the U.S. as EV for All Plan finally unfolds. And this was published just last week on November 4th, 2024.
Very recent.
Yes, very
All right.
recent.
Okay.
Now, get this.
Okay.
GM just hit a major milestone.
Okay.
They've sold over 300,000 EVs in the U.S.
Wow.
And not only that, they've actually outsold Ford and Hyundai to become the second largest EV seller,
Wow, that's impressive.
right behind Tesla.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think, Tesla gets so much of the attention and the hype, but
Right.
this really shows that GM has been building momentum kind of quietly under the radar.
Yeah.
And their strategy is clearly working.
Yeah, it's like they've been playing the long game, and now those results are...
Speaking for themselves.
For sure.
300,000 EVs sold since 2016.
Oh,
And get this, a whopping 370,000 across all of North America.
that's huge.
It's not just impressive, it's a signal that something big is happening in the auto industry.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And it's not just about GM's success, but what we're really seeing here is a huge shift
Yeah.
in the car market as a whole.
Right.
Those sales numbers tell us that EVs aren't just some niche product anymore. They're really going mainstream.
Okay, so let's unpack this whole EV for all strategy because it sounds good,
Yeah.
like on paper.
Right.
But is there really something substantial behind it?
Yeah, I think there really is. I think GM's approach here is really smart. Instead of going all in on one flagship model like some other companies, they're offering a diverse lineup of EVs to cater to all sorts of needs and budgets.
Right.
So we're talking affordable options,
Mm-hmm.
luxury models, even pickup trucks. It's like they're saying, hey, no matter who you are or what you need, we've got an EV for you. I love that. And speaking of variety, let's dive into some of these specific models
Okay.
that the article highlights.
Yeah.
The Chevy Equinox EV.
Right.
They're calling this a game changer in terms of affordability.
For sure.
It starts at under $35,000,
Mm-hmm.
$34,995 to be exact.
Okay.
And it has a range of 319 miles.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing for that price point.
It is, especially when you compare it to other EVs on the market that have a similar range.
Right.
A lot of those are significantly more expensive.
Yeah.
So this really is making EVs accessible to a much wider audience.
And they're not stopping there.
Nope.
The article also mentions the Chevy Silverado EV,
Yeah, the Silverado.
which it sounds like they're coming out with a more affordable LT trim,
Right.
which basically means a less fancy, more budget-friendly version for 2025.
That's right. And they're targeting that pickup truck driver market, which is huge.
Huge.
Absolutely.
And for those who are looking for something a bit more luxurious, they've got the Cadillac Lyriq, the OPT IQ, and the Escalade IQ.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite a range,
Yeah,
wouldn't you say?
it is. They're covering all their bases, which
Yeah.
I think is a brilliant move.
Mm-hmm.
And, remember all those rumors about a next-gen Chevy Bolt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the article confirms it.
Okay.
A whole new family of Bolts is hitting the streets in 2025.
Wow. So they're really thinking long term here.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm curious, how are they managing to offer all of these EVs at such competitive prices?
That's a great question. And the answer, at least in part, lies in the declining cost of batteries.
Ah, yes, the battery, the heart of an EV.
Yeah.
But also often the most expensive part.
Exactly. And the article actually mentions that GM is moving away from its Ultium battery brand.
Interesting.
And instead, they're focusing on developing new, more cost-effective battery chemistries.
So they're not just relying on existing technology,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
pushing the boundaries
Exactly.
to make EVs more affordable.
Exactly. And this is really where I think GM's history as a traditional automaker really comes into play. They have that manufacturing experience and those established supply chains to scale up production and bring those costs down.
The article actually quotes GM President Mark Rios,
Okay.
and it's a pretty powerful statement, he says.
Yeah.
We don't need to create a skunk works to create affordable electric vehicles. And he added, we know how to do this.
It kind of comes off as a little bit of a jab at some of their competitors.
Right?
But it also highlights a key difference in their approach.
Right.
You know, GM isn't treating EVs as like some separate experimental project.
Right.
They're really integrating them into their existing infrastructure and expertise, which I think is a big part of why they're seeing this level of success.
So it's not just about churning out EVs, it's about building a whole ecosystem around them.
Precisely. And that brings us to another key point. The article emphasizes that GM is thinking beyond just manufacturing.
Okay.
They're actively working to expand both home and public charging options.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, range anxiety is a major hurdle for a lot of people who are considering making the switch to an EV.
Yeah.
And if charging is more convenient and accessible,
Absolutely.
that could really make a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like they're thinking several steps ahead.
I think you're right. They're not just selling cars. They're really building a future where EVs are the norm.
Right.
And it seems to be working.
Yeah.
The article actually shows a chart of GM's cumulative U.S. EV sales from 2016 to 2024.
Okay.
And it basically looks like a hockey stick. For the first few years, sales were relatively flat, and then, bam, they just skyrocketed.
So it's not just a fluke.
Right.
It's a deliberate strategy.
Yeah.
That's gaining serious traction.
Absolutely.
This really is starting to feel like a turning point, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and it has implications for the whole auto industry.
Yeah.
You know, we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean for other players like Ford, Toyota, even Tesla?
Now that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Are they feeling the heat? We'll
Right.
have to find out.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So we've seen that GM is really making waves in the EV market.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for the other big players?
Right.
I mean, are Ford and Toyota like sweating bullets right now?
Well, I think it's safe to say that GM's success is definitely sending ripples throughout the whole industry.
Yeah.
You know, for the traditional automakers that have been kind of slow to embrace EVs, this is definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah.
They're going to have to step up their game if they want to stay competitive.
Yeah. It's like a race to the finish line.
Right.
And GM just like zoomed ahead.
Yeah.
But what about Tesla?
Right.
I mean, they've been the EV king for so long.
Yeah.
Can they hold on to their crown?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tesla's built a really strong brand.
Right.
And they have a very loyal customer base. But GM is coming at them with a different strategy,
Right.
one that focuses on affordability and accessibility. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out.
And this is where it gets really interesting for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about some corporate competition.
Yeah.
This is about the future of transportation.
Absolutely.
And that future is starting to look a lot more electric.
You're absolutely right. And the fact that GM is investing so heavily in EVs is a sign that they believe in that future too.
Right.
And what's exciting is that, you know, this increased competition is going to benefit consumers in the long run.
Right.
We're going to see more choices, better prices, and a smoother transition to electric driving.
Yeah, it's like the EV market is finally coming of age.
Yeah, I agree.
We're moving beyond those early adopters and the luxury models. And now EVs are becoming a real option for everyday people.
Exactly.
And that's thanks in part to companies like GM
Right.
who are making them more affordable and accessible.
Precisely. And as battery technology continues to improve and production costs come down, we can expect to see even more affordable EVs in the coming years.
Yeah.
This trend is only going to accelerate.
So what does this all mean for you if you're thinking about buying a car in the near future?
Well, the good news is you're going to have more options than ever before.
Right.
But it also means that you need to do your research.
Yeah.
Think about your needs, your budget, and what kind of driving you actually do. There's likely an EV out there that's a perfect fit for you.
And this is where that whole EV for all strategy really shines.
Right.
It's not just a catchy slogan.
No.
GM is actually putting it into practice by offering that diverse lineup of EVs
Exactly.
that can appeal to a wide range of drivers.
And they're not just focusing on the cars themselves, they're thinking about that whole EV ecosystem.
Right.
Remember how we talked about their efforts to expand charging infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a crucial piece of the puzzle because
It is.
if people are worried about running out of juice on the road,
Yeah.
it's going to hold back EV adoption.
Absolutely. And that's why GM is investing in both home and public charging solutions. They're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to charge their EVs wherever they are. They've even partnered with Pilot Flying J
Okay.
to install 2,000 fast chargers at up to 500 Pilot and Flying J travel centers across the U.S.
Wow.
They're also working with EVgo to install 3,250 fast chargers in American cities and suburbs by the end of 2025.
That's awesome.
So they're really taking those concrete steps to address range anxiety.
Yeah, it sounds like they're really committed to making this transition to EVs
Yeah,
as smooth as possible for everyone.
for sure.
They're not just throwing cars out there and hoping for the best.
Right.
They're really thinking about that bigger picture.
And that's what's so exciting about this moment in the auto industry. We're seeing real innovation and a genuine commitment to a more sustainable future.
It feels like we're on the cusp of a major transportation revolution.
Yeah, it does.
And as with any revolution,
Yeah,
there will be winners and losers.
that's a great point. The companies that adapt quickly and embrace this change are going to be the ones that thrive. And the consumers that are open to new possibilities are going to reap the benefits.
So for all you car enthusiasts out there, or anyone who's even thinking about buying a new car in the next few years, pay attention.
Yeah.
Because the EV landscape is changing rapidly, and it's only going to get more exciting from here.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions about EVs.
Right.
They've come a long way, and they might just surprise you with their performance, their range, and their features.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's leave our listeners with a final thought, something to ponder as they go about their day.
Okay.
We've seen how GM is shaking things up, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the EV market. But what does this mean for the long game?
Yes. What does it mean for the long game? Will the traditional car manufacturers like Ford and Toyota be able to keep up?
Right.
Will Tesla maintain its dominance?
Mm-hmm.
Or will new players emerge and disrupt the market even further?
Well, there's some big questions.
They are.
And ultimately, the answers will depend on a lot of factors. Technological advancements, government policies, kind of lies the pan. It's a complex equation.
It is.
But one thing is for sure, the future of transportation is electric.
Absolutely.
And that's something to be excited about.
It is.
You know, it's a pretty fascinating time to be following this whole, car industry.
Yeah.
And as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back to you.
Right.
Because all of this, innovation and this competition, it all boils down to one question.
Yeah.
What does this mean for you as a car buyer in the next few years?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
If you're even remotely thinking about buying a car,
Right.
in the near future, this whole EV revolution is something that you really need to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
The options are expanding so rapidly, the technology is constantly evolving, and the prices are becoming more and more competitive.
So it's almost like a whole new world is opening up for car buyers.
Yeah.
And with that comes a whole new set of decisions to make. So what should people be thinking about?
Well, first and foremost, you need to really consider your own individual needs and priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a long-range vehicle for your commute?
Right.
Are you looking for a spacious SUV for your family?
Right.
Or maybe you want a sporty compact car just for city driving.
Yeah.
The good news is there's probably an EV out there that can meet your specific requirements.
It's like shopping for any other car, right?
Yeah.
But now you've got this whole other layer of things to think about, like charging range battery technology.
Exactly. And that's where doing your research is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Don't just rely on what you hear from your friends.
Right.
Or what you see in some flashy ad.
Yeah.
Take some time, read some reviews, compare the different models, and really understand the pros and cons of each option.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to test drive a few EVs.
Absolutely.
That's really the best way to get a feel for, what they're actually like to drive.
Yeah.
See if it fits your lifestyle.
For sure. And remember, EVs have come a long way in recent years.
Right.
You might be surprised by how fun they are to drive, how quiet they are, and how much torque they have.
Yeah, I think a lot of people still have this misconception that EVs are slow or boring to drive.
Right.
But that's just not true anymore.
No, not at all. In fact, a lot of EVs offer incredible acceleration and performance
Right.
that can rival or even surpass traditional gas-powered cars.
So it's safe to say that the future of driving is looking pretty electric.
I think so.
And with companies like GM stepping up their game and making EVs more affordable and accessible,
Right.
it's a future that's within reach for more and more people.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. This EV revolution is happening now.
Yeah.
And it's a really exciting time to be a part of it.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into GM's EV sales surge.
Okay.
We covered a lot of ground today, from their impressive sales figures and innovative models to their commitment to building a really robust EV ecosystem. But most importantly, we explored what this all means for you as a car buyer
Right.
and as someone who's witnessing this major shift in the automotive landscape.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
And, stay curious.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, and maybe consider taking an EV for a spin.
Yeah.
You might just be surprised by what you discover.